Hello everyone and welcome back to the Saints View, the place for Southampton content. Dan here, and whilst we have no Southampton games this weekend, we're going to go with the original idea of a Q&A whilst we have this international break. Now, to start off with, before we get into any of this, I just want to apologise for the lack of content after last weekend's game against Watford. A mix of the supply of our light for the camera, not including a battery in the packaging, was part of it. Obviously the weather was shocking as well, pouring down, so I think a mix of all that just made it too difficult to film. Obviously Tom and Josh got some brilliant fan reactions up, so obviously thank you for that, because that was last minute. And also I don't think we're going to be filming outside Craven Cottage after the Fulham game, because I can't go now, it seems, because of work commitments. That may change, I may be able to go, and if I do go then obviously I will try my best to film. Having said that, let's get into the video. Q&A. I asked on Twitter this morning for some questions Southampton related, so let's have a look. True Saints fan asks, if we sack Mark Hughes, who would you replace him with? Obviously I'd imagine True Saints fan is asking my realistic option. I think Brendan Rodgers would be semi-realistic, I think, because with the sort of club that he would go to manage, obviously he's managed Swansea and they were a very small club, and he did really well with them. Obviously he did very well with Liverpool for the most part. And yes, he's winning trophies at Celtic and winning most weekends, but I think, I don't know, I heard Chris Sutton say for BBC or BT or someone earlier on in the season, if a Premier League side offered him the money, he would leave Celtic. Obviously Chris Sutton is a reliable source for Celtic, I would imagine. So yeah, I think if we showed a bit of ambition, especially if we had a new director of football with a bit of ambition, Stuart Webber by the way is the one I want, get him in, or Paul Mitchell. Yeah, I think he would do very well for us. I've always liked Brendan Rodgers, I've always wanted to see him in the Southampton dugout. I think he's in his last year, I believe, in his contract at Celtic. I doubt he'll renew, so the compensation fee shouldn't be too much. But yeah, I think we need to look for a manager who will bring exciting football but also knows the Premier League. So people thinking Jardim will come, first of all he wouldn't, because he will want European football straight away. But even if he did come, not necessarily it would work out, because he's not managed in the Premier League before, and he needs to take a side who is struggling out of the bottom three, because eventually we're going to be in it the way it's going. But yeah, I think Brendan Rodgers would be a very good choice if we showed a bit of ambition to go snatch him up from Celtic. Marshall or at Danny Sings, I always love that at. Which positions do we need to improve in January? I think there's three. I think we definitely need another centre-back. Obviously we've got quite a few right now. Most of them obviously don't get into the team, and so we may have to sell one because they'll be surplus to requirements. But yeah, I think we need a bit more stability at the back, because right now we're shipping goals. Obviously not as much as Fulham, and we have got more clean sheets than Manchester United, which is crazy. But we concede in too vast quantities. So I think just sort of shore up the defence, tidy up a bit, give a bit more competition, and then we might be alright. I think our midfield's very solid. I think our midfield's by far our best sort of position. And then obviously the goals aren't coming in, so we need a bit more creativity. So I think another winger, because we only have about two right now, given that Boufal's on loan. So just get a bit more depth, a bit more competition out wide. And then I think you could say we need another striker. I think the only thing I'll say about that is I've got hope in Gabbiadini and Ings being the partnership we've been waiting for all season. I said it at the beginning in the pre-season, we need to play Gabbiadini with a brand new striker. Obviously that brand new striker ended up being Ings, and you know, against Watford they look decent together. With Gabby out wide, you know, it worked. However, it looks like Ings may be injured, and obviously Long is going to be out for a couple of weeks. Austin's unfit in my opinion, so I think we may need another striker just to sort of shore things up, because I doubt we'll recall Guido Carrillo. Chris Hughes asks, if you could sign 3 players in January with a realistic budget, what trio are you bringing in? Now that links quite well with Marshall's question actually, because obviously I've given 3 positions. So I think in terms of a centre-back, I would go for someone like Gary Cahill, keeping it realistic. We've been linked with him both with permanent and loan moves in January. I think he'd be very good for us. Massive amounts of experience, played for Bolton and Chelsea, so he knows the Premier League very well. He's getting on a bit, I believe he's in his 30s, But you don't go on to play for Chelsea and you don't go on to play for England the number of times he has without being a decent defender. Obviously he's out of favour now, but I think it'd be great to have a bit of a leadership at the back, a bit of experience as well. He'll really sort the team out, it would seem, from the back as well. I'd imagine from his Bolton days he knows what it's like to be in relegation scraps. So I think he'd be a great signing for us. In terms of a winger, I've always liked Pione Sisto. I said that before. He came and scored at St Mary's for Celta Vigo in the friendly this summer. Always liked him. I've always liked Bruno as well, who now plays for Leipzig. I was disappointed that he moved to Leipzig. I thought we should have gone for him back in January. But we've also been linked with Nicolas Pepe, who is a young winger from Lille, I believe. I've looked at his video based on one of those scouting videos. Looks like a decent prospect. I think he's still quite young, raw talent, but definitely potential there. I've always liked Olivier Giroud as well. I've always said it. I think he'd be perfect for us. We need a physical presence up front. He guarantees goals. Obviously, he doesn't finish them every time. Got a tendency for not finishing his dinner sometimes, but we lack presence. He's someone who, when he jumps for the ball, 99% of the time he's going to win it. We know that, and so we've obviously seen that at St Mary's as well. He scored a couple of headers last season against us at St Mary's. And I don't think the fee would be too high. I think we would be looking probably for a record fee around 20 million quid. But given that he's in his 30s now, I think we could shy him away from Chelsea, given that he's not getting a look in. But then again, I think we need a bit of ambition from the board to be able to do that. John Luke asks, why do you feel that many of the summer signings have struggled to settle in, with Ings the only signing proving to be the only success, albeit alone? I don't know. I think with Elyounoussi's case, big fee for a player coming from the Swiss division, and obviously the quality difference will be massive. Obviously I'm not an avid watcher of the Swiss league, but I could imagine that it's nowhere near the Premier League level. Obviously they had a good campaign in the Champions League last year, beat Man United and beat Man City, with Elyounoussi scoring at the Etihad, of course. I think that he's just sort of getting to grips with the league still. I'm quite surprised that it's taken 12 league games for this to happen, but I think the fact that he's on the bench now, that given that he's been dropped, maybe he'll work a bit harder in training. As for Vestergaard, I think with him, I think he's been a little bit unlucky. I think Hughes' decision to keep Hood in the team has been a bit unfortunate for him. Having said that, Hood has had some decent performances of late, but he's just inconsistent. I think at Man City he was shocking, but against Watford he was sublime in my opinion. Obviously everyone's going to disagree because he's a scapegoat for our club. But yeah, I think given that Vestergaard's 6'7", he's the tallest player in the Premier League, by the way. It's mental that we're not playing him. Obviously, okay, he's been very slow at times. I think Wolves away he was shocking. Can't really win the headers, which is surprising because he jumps, and he's 6'7", so surely he should win them. He doesn't win most of the challenges. However, before he signed, the stat that was coming out about him when we were linked with him was very promising. It said that out of all the defenders in the Bundesliga, he was in the top 3. He might have even been top, having said that, for combined interceptions and tackles that were successful. Now, to me, that says he's a very good defender. He just needs to work out his positioning a little bit because he's been caught off guard a little bit. And pace, you can't really improve that. And he just needs to jump a bit more. It's so simple, but I think the fact that he's 18 million quid, we need to be playing him. Right? We bought Angus Gunn, obviously. We always knew he was going to be a cup keeper, one for the future. And Stuart Armstrong, you know what? I think for how much little he's played, he should have played a bit more. But it wasn't a very big fee, was it? It was, what, 7 million quid? So I think nowadays that's a bit of a bargain. So even if he plays 3 good games a season, you sort of got your money's worth, which is how the market's going right now. Unlucky not to score against Watford. I thought he was brilliant. However, sometimes he does lose it in the middle. He's a bit weak. I think if you look at Wolves' second goal when he came on as a substitute a couple months ago, when obviously we were at the Molineux, I think he played a big part in their second goal. He just too weak on the wing, just clear the ball, doesn't. But I think he deserves a look in. He started last weekend, and I'd like to see him start against Fulham. I think he's done all right. LCFC Boyer, obviously a Leicester fan, asks, do you miss Puel? And I say this every time I get asked this, no, I don't miss Puel. And the reason for that is this. Every pundit has said that we were sort of harsh to sack Puel, and partially I agree. Obviously, in hindsight, we've done a lot worse than we did with him. But I don't think the people who slag us off for sacking him have looked into the situation enough. We were in the Europa League group stages for the first time ever, right? And that season we did want a European run. You know, some fans would say, no, we need to focus on the Premier League because we weren't good enough to assure survival. I think it was a bit, actually ironically, I think it's a bit like Leicester that season. They wanted a Champions League run, but the fact that Ranieri was so focused on actually trying to create a miracle again, winning the Champions League, you know, the Premier League campaign suffered from that. And they had a good run. We should have gotten to the quarterfinals, in my opinion. I think we should have gone at least that far. But we bottled it. We were lucky with our group. You know, obviously Inter Milan, that was a great occasion. But at the time, you know, we were playing them at the right time. They were in a heap of trouble. Obviously, they're a lot better now. But the fact that we didn't get out of that group, partially that was because of the stupid UEFA rule that away goals head-to-head counted ahead of goal difference. I remember, and I was just like, I've never heard of that before. Like, why is that applying now? Obviously, we knew that was going to play into contention at the time, and I remember the last game we still hadn't decided our fate. We had Hapoel Beersheva, who were aside from Israel at home, and a 0-0 or a win would have seen us through. A score draw or a loss obviously wouldn't have seen us through to the group knockouts. Puel sat back. He parked the bus against a side of Farmers, and we drew 1-1. Mario Shida missed a header in the last minute to send us through. It was just awful. And also, if you look at the league campaign, we'll forget about the League Cup final. And yes, we should have won that, but that was just a very good run. I think we were quite lucky at times in that run. But in terms of the league, we finished on 46 points. Under Koeman, the season before, we had, I can't remember exactly, but it was over 60. The difference in points between 15-16 and 16-17 was more than the difference in points of 16-17 and 17-18. Given that we were a side who'd qualified for Europe 2 seasons in a row, going down to 46 points, that's why he had to go. And the football obviously wasn't good. We went on a ridiculous run of something like 3 months without scoring at home, and he didn't help himself. You know, he's a boring guy. Still is. I still don't think he's learned English, which is unreal. Still using the same words in his press conferences. Having said that, massive respect to him for the press conferences just before the Cardiff game. The little sort of note he gave in that press conference about Kumbichai was really moving. But he just didn't work out for us. Obviously, we've gotten worse since then, but I think we still had to sack Puel. Sorry, I waffled on with that one. Let's go on to the next one. Callum asks, who's our most consistent and least consistent player this season? Most consistent must have been Højbjerg. Like, he has to be. I think he's been really solid. I thought against Watford, actually, he had his worst game this season, but, you know, he got 2 goals back to back. And he's just been a real figure on the pitch. You know, it's been difficult for the team. I think he needs to get the armband. You know, Bertrand's suspended for Fulham. If he doesn't get the armband, I'll be shocked and really disappointed. Winning the ball, yeah. Even when he loses the ball, he has a great desire to sort of win it back. And I think Lemina's been like that as well this season. I think Lemina's improved quite a lot as well. But overall, Højbjerg definitely has been our best player and consistent. And then least consistent, I think there are a few. Honestly, I'll put Wesley Hoyt up there because he has some really good performances, but he lets himself down with the other performances that are bad, which is why he's such a scapegoat, especially on social media with our fan base. I think both fullbacks, Bertrand and Cedric, have been a bit inconsistent this season. There's a lot. Some of them have really good performances, and then the next week they're shocking. And then Rob asks, who do you think should be captain and why? Well, I've already just said this. Pierre Højbjerg. I think overall, I understand why Bertrand's got the armband, and I think it'd be a little bit. I think if I was a manager and I was being pressured to give the armband to how was Højbjerg, 23? If I was pressured to give the armband to a 23-year-old, you know, I think there's something not right. But he is the leader. He is our biggest sort of figure on the pitch, and I think definitely for the Fulham game, maybe not afterwards, but definitely for the Fulham game, whilst Bertrand's suspended, he should be given the armband. Right, that is it for the Q&A. Thank you very much for watching. We will be back with content this week ahead of the crucial game against Fulham. Until then, please subscribe, follow us on all our social medias, and I will see you very soon.